first stroke of genius, if you will, right, for developing this sort of system is that it's institutionalized, right? You start K through 12 education and you're reared in sort of a feminine imperative because you're meant to sit still for long periods of time, working on tasks that for women tend to be easier, for younger girls tends to be easier. For guys, on the other hand, that are fidgety, that need physical exertion, they need the joking and jostling, they need to be able to stand up and take breaks. That's a hard thing to do. And when most educators tend to be women, especially at the lower levels, elementary school, pre-K, all that, then it does become difficult from that perspective. And then let's say you survive that, right? You make it out alive, in pieces perhaps, right? Because not in one piece, because it will break you down slowly. The humiliation ritual does continue. You get to uni and it's a lot of the same thing. A lot of the professors are geared towards they're skewed more towards the liberal side. And so that implies that they are going to break down and deconstruct social constructs. And you're going to see the patriarchy in all its full bloom, and we're going to tear it down. And the world is full of injustice, and the climate is collapsing, and there's poverty everywhere. And you have this huge, heavy cloud above you the entire time, which I think in retrospect is meant to kind of give you a morbid sort of viewpoint of the world. And I think maybe the silver lining in that whole thing is that you're meant to sort of come away with a social justice way of looking at the world, and that you're supposed to remedy an injustice. You're supposed to fix things as they are. But anyhow, so that's, I think, a big part of it, is that the entire education system is feminized, the whole thing, to the bone. There's nothing to be said about that besides it's kind of like you either get in line or you kind of stay quiet, zip tie your mouth, and kind of just get through the whole humiliation ritual in one piece and kind of keep your opinions to yourself, or you subscribe to those ideas like I did at one point. And unfortunately, it took me a while to kind of get away from that, but nevertheless, it was ingrained in me. The other thing is too, is like, all right, once you get out of uni, then what? Then most people enter the job market, right? And they enter the workforce, and your comportment in the job is very much feminized as well. There's a heavy emphasis on safe spaces, on brave spaces, on mental health, things of that nature. A lot of it is toned and colored in a way that's fully feminized, because all the positions in HR, I mean, the mere existence of HR is a feminine imperative. It is, initially, I think it kind of started as a way to kind of police people's behaviors, but with Me Too, it became especially feminized, right? Feminine coded for certain. So the way you behaved and comported, the things you said at work were heavily monitored. And the Gestapo was after you if you said anything that came out of line, anything that went out of line. I've gotten in trouble for some of the most absurd things because of that. Another big one, I think, is fatherlessness. If you don't have a father in the household, I think you run the risk of not knowing how to behave as a man. And the thing is, like, I didn't really grow up with a father until I was about 12. So a lot of my younger years, I remember yearning for some type of older figure to sort of like guide me. And I just wanted that camaraderie and that jostling, that wrestling, that back and forth with like someone bigger, stronger than me, that would sort of allow me to learn how to behave as I was growing up. But I didn't have that, and I knew that was something I wanted. I craved it. Even as a kid, I knew that there was something that I was missing. Like, I knew I needed that father figure, and that took a heavy toll, I think. And I think it does take a heavy toll on somebody else, because at least after 12, you could say, well, at least I got one, right? However that manifested. But um, for the people that never had that, and all you have is a mom in the household, and then so you're reared in these institutions, and so you can kind of see how these guys get easily lost and don't really know how to behave and how to conduct themselves. And I think if anything, I would say that's a pretty good indicator of how bad your life might go if you are fatherless. um the other big one is simp culture. Simp culture is out of control. I mean, you got these guys that are over bidding on women that have no business, thinking that they deserve men like this, of this type of caliber of guy. And so they've gotten spoiled for choice and they think they deserve more than they should have, which frankly is absurd. And it is the inflation of sort of women. And now I think that's why you have so much trouble amongst the sexes, because there is definitely um there's definitely like a mismatch in terms of the expectations that women have and the reality of the dating market and what many guys can offer. And certainly a lot of guys have dropped the ball, but there's a lot of girls asking for things that I'm thinking to myself, I have no business asking for. And so the simps have kind of inflated their value. A lot of these girls that should have never deserved that kind of unnecessary attention have gotten it and now don't want to get off the pedestal, don't want to get off the pulpit. um, the other, I think, big thing about the feminine sort of mystique and thinking that has infected a lot of men is therapy culture. And I mean therapy culture by labels such as narcissism that get thrown around left and right. Everybody's using the term. It's an umbrella term to catch any sort of behavior that they find mischievous in any way. So there's that. There's also the whole concept of love bombing, of stage five clinger, of anxiety and depression, and all these words that have kind of seeped into like the everyday language of people in general. I think part of it is that because of therapy culture that has made it so that everybody wants to go to therapy, is a big one. And then I think the worst one of it is the whole concept of toxic masculinity, which I think is one of the most absurd things ever. That something that's inherently a natural resource or part of your being, every fiber of your being, is being monitored and considered toxic, is problematic. And I think that scares a lot of guys from actually being themselves, and so they end up kind of just cucking themselves because they don't know how else to be. And so they get lost in the process and don't know how to get it, don't know how to find themselves a way back in. So I think, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I just mentioned 6 things that I think are the most profound reasons why modern man has a feminist thinking. Is I think these 6 main sort of vehicles, levers, have created the kind of environment that we're in. And if you understand that, then you can begin to sort of move away from that, distance yourself from these mechanisms of control, because that's what they really are. And fine, even if you're saying, well, a bit of a stretch, buddy, I think just from a spiritual perspective, I think you want to remove yourself as much away from that as possible and kind of see how you develop, see how you process things, see how you make decisions, and see if it really wasn't actually what I said it was. Because I think, like I was thinking to myself, like, what was it that I did and how did I get out of it? And I thought that was a diagnosis that I came away with. And I think a lot of guys, after they see that list, will understand, well, wait a minute, like, I didn't even realize that I was under the spell of the feminine mystique in that way, or feminine thinking in that way. But sure enough, it's exactly what it is. And so if you're aware of these things, then it's best for you to kind of, like I say, distance yourself and get away from it and begin to remake yourself in a way that's true to who you are, and you're not being allowed to be dictated by the times. I think that's the most important thing, is that right there is being a classic man in that regard. But anyhow, I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next one.